What if I told you that one of the oldest migration legends in Europe does not begin in Mesopotamia, not in the Middle East, but in the mountains of Eastern Europe? What if a forgotten road, marked by stones, remembered in ancient texts and legends, once connected the Carpathian Mountains with the distant lands of Asia? A road some traditions call the Road of the Gods. And what if this road was followed not by armies, but by shepherds? Today, we explore one of the most mysterious and controversial legends of ancient Europe. Before we begin, one important note. This story is not part of mainstream historical consensus. It is based on an alternative historical interpretation that connects mythology, ancient literature, geography, and language. What you are about to hear is a legendary reconstruction of the past. The story begins in the Carpathian region, a vast landscape shaped by mountains, valleys, and rivers. In many ancient traditions, this land was not simply a place to live. It was seen as a sacred center, a land of origins. According to this interpretation, very ancient pastoral communities lived here for thousands of years. They were not farmers at first. They were shepherds. Their entire society revolved around the movement of herds, seasonal migration, and the rhythm of the mountains. For them, the mountains were not barriers. They were spiritual landmarks. Over many generations, something changed. The number of people increased. The number of animals increased. The traditional pastures of the Carpathian region slowly became insufficient. At first, the shepherds traveled farther during the summer, then farther again. And eventually, some journeys became so long that returning home every year was no longer possible. This was not an invasion. It was not a conquest. It was a slow, natural expansion driven by survival. A movement of families, herds, and memory. According to the legend, these migrations were not chaotic. They followed a known route, a remembered route, a sacred route. This route is known in later traditions as the Road of the Gods. Along this road, massive stones were supposedly placed at intervals, not monuments, markers, guides, a way to recognize the correct path across immense distances. The road itself becomes more than a trail. It becomes a symbolic line connecting the homeland to the unknown, a living memory carved into the landscape. In some traditions of Eastern Europe, a long alignment of stones stretching from the Prut River toward the Sea of Azov is associated with this ancient route. The road did not simply lead outward. It was meant to lead back, home. For these communities, the journey itself gained religious meaning. The return to the Carpathian homeland became ritualized. The mountains were not merely where people were born. They were where identity was anchored. The road connected distant pastures and distant lands to a spiritual center, and over time, this memory turned into legend. According to this interpretation, one of the most important stages of this migration took place in the northern Caucasus. Here, the shepherd communities are believed to have remained for a long time, not merely passing through, but settling, stabilizing, building a new regional center before continuing their journey eastward. In the legend, this region becomes a gateway between two worlds, Europe behind them, Asia ahead. From the Caucasus, the story grows even more ambitious. The legend claims that these pastoral communities continued east, far east, across the great steppe corridors, toward Central Asia, and eventually toward the Indian subcontinent. This idea is not presented as a sudden migration. It unfolds slowly, across generations, across lifetimes, across cultural transformations. Here is where the story becomes truly fascinating. Supporters of this interpretation point to the great ancient Indian epics, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. These texts are not treated as literal historical records, but as mythological memory, layered storytelling, fragments of very old events reshaped by centuries of oral tradition. The heroic figures, the great battles, the divine interventions are interpreted as symbolic reflections of ancient conflicts, leadership struggles, and migrations. In this view, the heroes are not individual people. They are composite memories, many lives merged into a single legendary figure. The legend also connects these stories to the emergence of powerful warrior elites. According to the narrative, ancient conflicts between social groups, especially between warrior leaders and religious elites, became deeply embedded in mythology. The struggle was not only political, it was spiritual. Who had the right to speak for the gods? Who had the authority to rule? Who controlled sacred knowledge? These tensions are reflected in later religious reforms and mythological reinterpretations. What makes this legend different from most migration myths is one important detail. The road is not remembered as a route of conquest. It is remembered as a route of return. A path that allowed people to move across enormous distances while still belonging to one place. Language, customs, social structures, rituals. All of these were carried along the road like invisible cargo. The shepherds were not portrayed as wandering tribes without roots. They were seen as people who never stopped belonging to their original homeland, even when that homeland became unreachable. At some point, the distances became too great. The road back was simply too long. Generations were born far from the mountains their ancestors still spoke about. The physical return faded, but the memory did not. What remained were stories, ritual fragments, place names, symbols, and epic poetry. The road itself turned into myth. It is extremely important to say this clearly. This interpretation is not accepted as proven history. It is an attempt to reconstruct very ancient human movements by combining mythology, ancient literature, geography, linguistics, and cultural continuity. It treats legends not as fantasy, but as distorted memory, memory filtered through thousands of years of storytelling. Whether the Road of the Gods truly connected the Carpathians to India or not, the legend reveals something very powerful about ancient people. They did not experience the world as separated by continents and borders. They experienced it as a network of routes, of paths, of remembered landscapes, of sacred directions. For them, movement was not exile, it was continuity. Maybe the shepherds of the Carpathians never reached the Indus Valley, or maybe their story changed so much along the way that we can no longer recognize its original shape. But the legend of the Road of the Gods tells us something deeper, that long before empires, before written history, before maps, human civilization was built on roads. Roads of animals, roads of people, and sometimes roads of gods.
Of suflete, ce greu mai duci prin lumii străine să apuci, cu dorul strâns ca un blestem, pe drumuri fără de suflete, de ce mai ras sub ploi de stele fără braț, când munții mei cu glasul lor mă strigă noapte cu fior? Mi-e dor de plaiul unde am stat, cu focul mic nevinovat. Mi-e dor de apa din pripor, de umbră rece de izvor. Mi-e dor de stâna din ponoare, de glasul oilor la soare, de fluier vechi pe înserat, ce-mi spunea cine sunt. Poartă drumul fără milă, cu inima făcută vină, dar pasul meu încet și greu, tot spre Carpați îl țin mereu. Și când mi-o fi sfârșitul scris, să nu mă plâng, să nu fiu trist, să mă așeze în mâia mea, unde am primit întâia stea. Mormântul fie sub arțar, din munții mei, din vechi hotar, să-mi fie somnul liniștit, sub iarba plaiului iubit, că nu mi-e frică de murit, ci de pământul părăsit. Mi-e frică, Doamne, mai ales, să nu mor dus fără de ales. Of, suflete, de ce mai taci când te cheamă codrii dragi? Te cheamă apă, te cheamă piatră, te cheamă vântul peste vatră. Și dacă nu-i mai apuca să calc pământ